Today we're going to talk about blockchains that are incomplete just by their own nature and need to be avoided as much as possible. We'll find that as we look at each of these types that you'll see some reason for their being, but it doesn't utilize all of the features of blockchain as we talked about in a prior video, and therefore those features don't fully benefit the businesses that are involved. So let's take a look. The first one is adopting a blockchain because you fear missing out. There are some CEOs and CIOs that are really anxious to make sure that their business shows their best foot forward and wants to make sure that the world knows that they are technologically advanced. That might not be the best reason, but we'll explore that one. The next one is the Trojan Horse. This one's very interesting, and we'll come to that. The next one, there's opportunistic solutions, and then there's evolutionary solutions. And then the last one is those blockchain native solutions that may provide a basic risk of their own. So let's go ahead and get some detail. Now, fear of missing out, what they look like is they're blockchain solutions that are applied when a simpler and less costly solution would work, like implementing a relational database or implementing a COTS off-the-shelf package that doesn't necessarily implement blockchain, but is totally adequate to meet the need. The challenge with this is that implementing a blockchain solution rarely creates a positive financial benefit. A simpler solution would cost less, and a blockchain solution applied when you don't need the features that a blockchain solution provides can take a lot of time, effort, and learning that is totally unnecessary and doesn't provide the benefit. So a lot of times these come from a response from pressure from corporate leaders a lot of times to deploy the latest technology despite the actual need to apply that technology. Usually the pressure comes from people who don't necessarily understand that you don't deploy a technology for technology's sake, you deploy technology to solve real corporate problems. So that takes us to our next one. What's a Trojan Horse solution? Remember, back in old history, we see the Trojan Horse being an implement of war where the Trojan Horse was supposed to be a gift to a people, and the people saw it as a gift, pulled it within their building walls, and inside the Trojan Horse were these were the military people that then attacked the city once they were within the walls. Well, in relationship to a Trojan Horse solution for blockchain, basically they're highly centralized versions of blockchains. The participants are usually required to join in order to gain access to markets. And then what happens is because it's centralized, the data is owned by the blockchain operator. And the problem with joining a blockchain in this configuration is that you may give up, as a business, proprietary data that the owner now has possession of. So data that you need to put in or are forced to put in to gain access to certain markets may in fact give a competitive advantage to the person who is running the blockchain and has hold of your data and can then, of course, do whatever research they want to. There are opportunistic solutions as well. I've got two examples to show you that'll best explain this. The Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the DTCC, plans to implement in quarter number 3 of this year their trade information warehouse with a distributed ledger technology. Now, this is an opportunistic solution because it replaces a database system that was old and needed to be updated anyway. So they had an opportunity simply because they were going to have to replace the database anyway. The problem with this as far as an incomplete solution is that it's very centralized. It's not going to have a node structure. It doesn't have tokens. It is a situation where maybe a database would have done just as well, but they had an opportunity, and so they decided to implement blockchain instead of a less technologically advanced solution. Another example is the clearinghouse electronic subregister system, or CHESS, that's used by the Australian Securities and Exchange Commission. And this particular database does in fact create a blockchain. It is a distributed ledger system. The issue here is that they in fact were trying to replace a mainframe system. So they had an opportunity, decided to implement a blockchain. And frankly, both of these could also be considered what they would refer to as evolutionary solutions. The reason these come about is because complete solutions are technically difficult to deploy. That being said, a lot of times they'll deploy it with a centralized solutions expecting to decentralize over time. And so they're blockchains that are basically meant to recruit other participants at a later time in order to make themselves more decentralized. Well, part of the challenge with that is there's a lot of extra coding that goes on there. When you don't specifically code it to be decentralized and have it coded to be centralized at the beginning, you've got to undo some of that centralized code in order to make it decentralized, which makes a little bit of a challenge. A lot of times they start as opportunistic solutions like I referred to with chess and with the TIW warehouse, but they morph into something that could be a bigger, more decentralized solution. Now, the Swedish Land Registry is just one of these type of evolutionary solutions. What the Land Registry in Sweden wanted to accomplish was to put it on the blockchain so that it could be decentralized, save a whole bunch of time, and it actually has delivered on its promise. And now they're working on pushing it out to other provinces and locations within Sweden. And once they adopt the land registry on their local level, instead of just at the state or country level, then it would be decentralized in that way, and each one of the localities would be running a node. So an evolutionary solution can develop into a fully operational blockchain solution over time. Now, the next one are these blockchain native solutions. There are a lot of blockchains that literally start out as a solution to a problem that starts with the idea of a blockchain, that it has not actually been implemented before. And the big example of these things that are born on the blockchain are the distributed finance systems that we're seeing. They're deployed directly on a blockchain. They're deployed out to people, and they work on recruiting, not necessarily from an operational standpoint, but distributed finance recruits people deliberately to become part of using their service. Well, the risk there is because the processes and the coding don't exist prior to implementing them. A lot of times it's very difficult to test them and get their security well defined. As we have seen that nearly $2 billion was stolen through June, and another $720 million was stolen from the distributed finance blockchains just in October. We can see that the added risk is actually showing itself in real dollars lost. So when they're potentially not well defined, you need to wait till one gets what I would refer to as hardened. Wait for one to be out in the wild for a while, not hacked, and run well, so you don't end up with a 3 arrows type situation or Celsius or a lot of the other bankruptcies that we actually see, much less the number of hacks that we've seen where money has actually been stolen. So what you've got is these 5 basic archetypes, you could call them, of blockchains that are just not quite complete. The fear of missing out, which is never a good reason to implement a software system. The Trojan Horse, which collects the data and has a single repository owned by the blockchain operator. and they basically just collect all your data and no telling exactly what they could do with it or what to do with it. There's the opportunistic solutions, an opportunity to replace an old system, or an evolutionary solution that allows the blockchain to start out with maybe a centralized hub, but eventually move into a decentralized mode. And of course, those blockchain native solutions that we see popping up here and there. So I hope you've enjoyed what you saw here. If you like what you saw, please hit that like button, and I hope you subscribe, and so we can get these videos out to even more people. Thanks.